Hi everyone, my name is Jagdishan Manivannan. I'm the Business One Director here at ERP Logic. Welcome you all to our another webinar, SAP Business One for Manufacturing. Today we'll be discussing more about ERP Logic and Business One, and also we have SAP Production Module, which we mainly focus on both make to order and also make to start process. And we'll talk about the enhancement, which covers based on the Business One functions. Then finally, we'll have a Q&A session. So let's go to the next slide. So we'll talk about ERP Logic. So we are a global company. So we started in 1998, and we have implemented various solutions for many customers, including small and mid-size, and also for large enterprise sectors. And we have offices in US, headquartered in US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and India. And we won multiple Partner of the Year award from SAP many times. And we have many solutions we have given across the globe. So let's go to the next slide. From offerings perspective, we have implementation service, application management service, remediation service, and upgrade and migration service. So when it comes to implementation, so we end-to-end SAP implementation, we seamlessly work with IT setups, the entire on-premises and also for on-cloud, entire implementation will be done. And we have AMS support that's after implementation, which we will be talking about the AMS service, and remediation service, which covers all the security, compliances, performance, and so forth. And we have upgrade and migration service. So that's all we offer as part of the entire processes and also the offerings that we provide. At this point, I will hand this over to Mr. Jerry Eisinger. So he's going to take us to the demo of both the production module, make to order and make to stock. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jerry.
Very good. All right, thanks, Jaga. So basically, I'm going to start today and just talk a little bit about SAP Business One in general, and then get into the actual production demonstration that we've talked about here today. So Business One in general, again, it's a software designed exclusively for small and mid-sized companies. Seamlessly integrates your entire business across financials and sales and customers and any of your operations. The software is, again, easy to set up, easy to use and optimize. We have over 95,000 customers running Business One today, and we have over 300 software solution partners with over 500 solutions. And so what that means is that we can take the basic SAP Business One product, and we can expand it with additional solutions to give it more functionality than what it comes with out of the box. Today, everything we show you today is going to be out of the box Business One, and then we'll talk about some of those additional solutions at the end. There's also mobile apps to access this, and we can deploy Business One both in the cloud and on premise. To give you just a snapshot again of what the entire Business One landscape looks like, these are the different modules that are included. The management and administration that we use to set the system up and used by our power users to set things up. At its core, it's a financial system. So there's a financial module that handles your chart of accounts and journal entries and all the detailed accounting activities. And that's integrated across all the rest of the system. So as you're making purchases and moving inventory and selling and buying, all of those transactions are hitting the financial module. Everything's fully integrated. We have a purchasing and operations module. We'll be showing some of that today to show you how the purchasing can work. A sales and service module to cover sales pipelines and tactical sales and deliveries and invoicing and that type of thing. Inventory and distribution to handle all the items and all the inventory management, transfers, all that type of activity. Most of our focus today is going to be in the production in the MRP area, where we can set up bills of materials and items, and, create production orders and produce product, run the MRP, which is the material requirements planning wizard. And all of that activity will show most of that today. There's also a project and resource management module where you can manage projects inside of Business One, and it's a very customizable solution. So again, you can create additional fields, create all kinds of queries and things to enhance how the system works out of the box. So at a snapshot, this is a real high-level view of everything that goes on within Business One. As I mentioned, the focus of this demonstration today is going to be on production. So this is kind of an outline of what I'm going to show. We'll go through some of the setup. You have to have items defined. You have to have bills of materials set up. So we'll go through that as a base minimum. And then optionally, you can also make this a little bit more robust by adding in production routings and resources. So we'll talk about how to do that. And then we'll go through the make to order scenario. So that we'll start with a sales order, and the sales order will then create a production order. We'll then execute that production, deliver the product, create the AR invoice, and receive the payment. So in a make to order scenario, we'll go through that process. And then in a make to stock scenario, this is where we'll run the material requirements planning wizard to basically show all the demands and requirements within the system. We'll create purchase orders and production orders from the MRP to meet the current demand within the system. We'll receive those purchased products into inventory, and we'll execute the production and to put those items into stock for the make to stock scenario. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the actual demo itself. I'm going to turn off my camera and let you focus on Business One. And so I'm going to basically now come out of this presentation and go to SAP Business One. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. If somebody could please confirm that my Business One screen is now visible. I'm going to assume that's a yes. Jaga, can you please respond and let me know that you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see the screen. I'm thinking it's the right place. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what you're looking at here is again SAP Business One. Down in the left column here is the main menu, and this pretty much corresponds to the slide that I showed you earlier. Again, so I'm not going to go into detail. Like, obviously, we have other webinars and other demonstrations that go into all these different modules. And rather than go through all these today, we're going to focus primarily on production. What you're seeing on the right side over here, this is our user definable dashboards. You don't have to use these if you don't want, but these are available out of the box. So up here is our common functions widget. Most of the things I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be selecting out of this widget up here. These same items are available over in the main menu. So again, this is just a shortcut to allow me to do things quicker than going through all the menus. So these are things that you can basically just drag and drop these things into here. They're things that you do on a regular basis. Some of the other dashboards here, this again is a process dashboard that shows the sales process. This is a counting widget over here that shows me my open invoices. So I've got 29 open invoices right now. Again, that's a live dashboard that takes me into the detail of that. With the SAP golden arrows, I can drill right into the actual invoice itself. So again, the idea is, these dashboards can be used for quick access to things. And then you have KPIs to show inventory turns or total sales amounts or whatever other information you want to see. And then we have some graphing dashboards as well. So again, just to kind of orient you to what you're looking at, that's really, I guess, what we're talking about here. So I'm going to jump now and talk specifically about production. And the first thing I want to do is show the setup that I've done for this meeting. So I'm going to, first of all, just go into a bill of material report and just show you the items that I created for this specific demonstration. So we've made this very generic because obviously we have people from many different industries. And so I didn't want to get specifically into any given product, but this is just an example of what the bill of material report looks like. And so we've got this end product up here. This is the end manufactured item. Here's some purchased items that are going into that end product. And then there's a sub-assembly that goes into that product. And here are the elements of the sub-assembly. So this is what it looks like, again, at a report level. But I'm going to drill down into this and look at it at a more detailed level. So here's the actual bill of material itself. So again, here's the end product that we're manufacturing. Here are all the items that are going that are going to be consumed when we produce this item. We're going to be consuming them with these quantities. So this is the bill of material that's basically telling me how I'm going to consume these products. And then over here, I've got the option to issue these either with backflush or manually. Now, if I set them to backflush, what that means is when I run a production order and I produce this end product, it will automatically take these items out of inventory at the quantities defined. So the backflush will happen automatically. The manual means that I have to tell the system how much I've actually consumed. And the reason that this item here is set on manual is because it's a batch managed item or a lot controlled item. So I have to tell the system what lot am I pulling these products from So I can't backflush either a lot controlled item or a serial number controlled item. They have to be manual because you have to tell the system which lot or serial number you're consuming. Additionally, I have this subassembly here. And if I drill into the subassembly, now this is a separate bill of material. So you can see it's a totally separate bill of material in order to produce this subassembly. And this subassembly is composed of 3 items at these quantities, and these are all going to be backflushed items. So this is the required setup. You have to basically tell the system for the products, for your end products, what are the items that go into those end products. And if you have subassemblies, you can go as many levels deep there as you want. So that would be a very simple setup as far as how to handle a bill of material setup. We can go into a little bit more complex example, which I want to show you here. So now if I drill into this example, it's the same exact bill of material from an items perspective, but I've added a couple more features here that I wanted to talk about. The first one is the routing stages. So what I can do is I can say, okay, now in order to produce this item, I also want to define the process, the manufacturing process that's going to be used. So in this case, I added 3 routing stages: design and engineering, build, and inspections. But you can define as many of these as you want. So if you have grinding or machining or lathe or whatever machines or whatever process you're going to go through, as an option, you can add those routing stages in here. And then it shows you that, yeah, I need to go through this step, then I need to go through the build step, that I'm going to go through inspections, or whatever your routing, whatever your manufacturing process is. Additionally to the routings, you can also have resources. So here I've added resources to the project or to this bill of material. And what a resource is basically is any machine or any equipment, any tools, any people, anything that you're going to use during the manufacturing process that you want to have cost added to the product. So here's some design labor, for example. And again, the cost of the design labor is $25 an hour. I can give that resource capacity. And so I can basically say, hey, I've got 7 hours of these resources available Monday through Friday. I can have multiple shifts. But the idea is you give a resource capacity, and then as you're creating production orders, you can consume that capacity and see if you're over capacity or under capacity for certain resources. So again, this gives you some ability to do capacity planning within the system if you use resources. So again, in this example, I've set up resources for design, a resource for assembly. So this would be my assembly resources, which would be probably people. And then down here, I have a resource for testing, which might include some equipment or whatever else is necessary. But this is a more complex example, but completely optional. It's required that you have the items, but routing stages and resources are optional. And so again, we have a lot of customers who might start by doing with just the simple bill of material with just the items, but you can add in the resources and the routing stages as you see fit. So this would be a more complex example. But again, the idea of this is that adding in the resources then gives you the total cost of the production, including the machines and labor that go into it. So when I produce these, then that cost is going to go into the end product as well. So in general, that's the setup that I did for this product or for this particular demo. And I wanted to show a couple of additional things as well. So again, if I drill into this item and then go right to what's called the item master. So this is where the actual item itself is defined. There's some additional things going on here that are important. For one, you can see here that this is a serial number tracked item. So every time I produce one of these, I'm going to have to also create a serial number for it. If I go to my inventory data tab, I can also see how many of these things, so here are all the different warehouses where this item could exist. It tells me that I have 16 of these in stock. I have 50 of these committed, which either means they're on sales orders or they're on production orders. And so the math here is that against 50 minus 16, I have negative 34 available. But I've also established a minimum inventory level of 50. And this number is going to come into play when I show you the material requirements planning wizard. So just kind of keep that in mind that for this item that we have a minimum inventory level established for it. Okay. If I go to the planning data tab, there's additional information that the material requirements planning is going to be looking at as well. It knows that this is a make item. It's something that we make internally. It knows that I have an order multiple of 5 and a minimum order quantity of 5, and it has a lead time of 2 days. So again, all of this information is going to feed into the MRP when it's making its recommendations on what we should produce or what we should purchase. So this would be an example of a make item and how that's defined in the item master. But if I was to go into one of the other components within here, I can also have similar information. So again, it tells me how many I have in stock, how many are committed, and I have a minimum inventory level of 100 in this one. And on the planning data tab here, this is a buy item. It has an order multiple of 50 and a minimum order of multiple of 50 and a 10-day lead time. So every item can be set up with different information. All of this data is going to feed into the MRP wizard to give it recommendations when we go through that. So for now, just kind of keep in mind all of that setup is done ahead of time in order for all this to work. Okay. So in general, that's the setup that's required. And now I'm going to go ahead and go into a make to order situation. So in make to order, you're basically starting with an SAP sales order. So let's just say I'm gonna for this river company here, I'm gonna create a sales order. I'm gonna deliver this product tomorrow on the 8th, and now I'm gonna define down here which products I'm gonna sell. And so for this demo, again, I've established a couple of different items here. So let's just say I'm selling this end product here, and I'm selling them a quantity of 2. In this particular instance here, I have these things already in stock, so there really wouldn't be a necessary reason for me to do a make to order because I have them in stock already. So again, this is a situation here where I would know that I could deliver this directly out of inventory because I've already got it in inventory. Okay. So if I was to select an item that we don't have any stock in, let me see if I have this one. Okay, so this item here does not have any stock. So again, this would be more of a make to order situation. Okay. So again, behind this item is the full bill of material that I showed you earlier. So the system knows what it takes to build this particular item from right from here. So I'm going to produce 2. So I'm going to sell 2 of these. And I want this to be a make to order situation. So if I click this checkbox here, allow procurement document, what this is going to do then is when I save this sales order, it's going to go through a wizard and it's going to create the production order to produce 2 of these items. So I'm going to go ahead and add that into the system, and you can see this wizard starts up. And for the most part, I don't really have to answer anything here or even respond to any of this. It's just showing me the information of what it's going through here. And I'm just going to keep clicking next. It's going to create a production order. Again, if I was going to buy this item, I could say, no, instead I want it to be a purchase order. But in this case, we want it to be a production order. It's something that we create. I'm just going to keep going through the wizard. And when I'm done, it creates this production order. So if I drill into this, now from that bill of material for this end item, it creates this production order for the quantity of 2 that we just selected on that sales order. And you can see over here that it's linked to the customer order. So it has the customer and the order linked into here. So now it knows that I'm producing this item, these two items for this particular order. Okay. So that's really how it creates the whole linkage to this thing. And now what I would do is when I'm ready to produce this on the floor, I would basically release this production order, and then it tells me it's linked to a sales order, and that's fine. And then I would, again, for using the base information out of SAP, I basically would print a work order, put this onto the shop floor, and this would tell people what they need to do. So this is just a crystal report. We can make this look any way you want. So it can show all the routing stages. It can show all the items that need to be consumed, pick lists, whatever needs to be created. Again, that's a crystal report that would just basically be a work order traveler that goes to the shop floor. And then we would go execute this work. So on the shop floor, we go build it. When I'm done building it, I would come back to this production order and then report what I've done. So again, I can do that by using the report completion function. And now it's telling me, yes, okay, how many of these did you produce? And I produced 2 of these. And when I go to add this in, it's then going to say, hey, this is a serial control item, so you need to enter the serial numbers. So, if you don't have serial controlled items or lot control items, you don't have to worry about this. This screen will never pop up. But again, just to show some of the capability of the system, and let's just say that I'm going to give it a serial number 500, and I'm producing 2 of them, so I have to give it 2 serial numbers, and then I can update that. And essentially what I've done now is created 2 serialized items that are going into inventory for the production of this. I've also got items down here that are manually issued, right? Because these are lot controlled items. This item down here is lot controlled. So because I have something that's manual, that means I also have to issue the components for this production order. So so now it's basically saying, hey, for this item, you should be using 2 of these. How many are you actually using? All right. And so I'm going to say, yes, I'm just using the 2. But now the lot control screen comes up and says, okay, now what lot are you pulling from? And you can see down here, I've got 2 different lots that I could have pulled this product from, 2 different batch numbers that I could be pulling this from. So I have to tell the system where did I actually pull it from. I can just use this auto select feature. If I'm pulling out of the top one, it will automatically pull the quantity out of the first batch, which is the oldest batch, and then I can update that. So again, these are things that you wouldn't have to do if you're not using lot controlled items or serial controlled items, but just to show you the functionality. So now at this point, I've issued everything, I've received everything. If I go over to the summary tab, I can actually see what happened behind the scenes when I did that. So the first thing is the component list. If I drill into here, you can see here's the inventory of all the items that came out of inventory. So the system, from a perpetual inventory standpoint, automatically pulled these items out of inventory at these quantities in order to get to the cost of $465 of product cost. The resources that we consumed are also in here. So again, here's the assembly, design, and testing resources that we consumed as part of that production, and it also gave those things cost, all of which go into the final product cost, which is now the end item, 2 of those going into inventory, again, at the final cost of that product. So all those transactions are happening behind the scenes. You really don't have to worry about them. They're happening automatically. But then, so when I'm done, I would close this production order and update this. And now this production order is complete. So I just produced these items. These items are now sitting in inventory. And so now I can go back to my sales order. And if I refresh the data on the screen, what you'll see now is I've got 2 in stock where before I had none in stock. And so now I can go ahead and deliver this. So just using standard SAP functionality, I create the delivery document. I can add this in, but of course it's going to ask me which serial numbers are you delivering to this customer. All right, and here are the 2 that we just produced. Again, I can auto select that if you know, so again, because I'm using serialized items, I'm required to do that. If I wasn't using serialized item, that step would not come up. Now I've delivered that item. The next step would be to create an AR invoice to bill the customer. There's my AR invoice. In this case, I'm gonna cheat and just go ahead and accept and pretend that the customer already paid me as well, so I can receive the payment on this. Normally, I would do that through the banking module, but basically now what I've done is finish the entire process of make to order. So if I go to the relationship map for what we just did, this is what happened. We started with a sales order. We created this production order. We issued the product for production, and we did a receipt from production to handle all those transactions. Then from the sales order, we created a delivery, we created an AR invoice, and we received our payment. So that's essentially what happens in a make to order situation. Okay. So that kind of wraps up make to order. The other scenario we wanted to cover is make to stock. So again, we have a lot of customers who basically are making the product in advance, putting it on the shelf, and then so that it's available when you create the sales order. It's already available for shipment. So when you do that, now what we're really doing is we're doing demand-based production and demand-based purchasing. And so to do that, we'd be looking at our MRP wizard. And again, MRP stands for Material Requirements Planning. And so I've set up a scenario that we're going to walk through here today. It's just, again, for our generic demo here. And it truly is just a wizard. I go through here and answer questions, and then it makes recommendations in the end. And so the first step is to create your planning horizon. So again, I'm starting on December 6th, and I'm looking out 90 days into the future, and I'm going to be looking at the data one day at a time, basically. All right. Again, there's some other choices here, but the idea is you create your planning horizon. What do you want the system to look at? The next step is you say, what items do you want it to look at? Now, again, in my demo system, I have lots and lots of items, but we're limiting it today just down to the items that I created for this demonstration today. So again, here are all the items, end items, and purchased item, or I'm sorry, component items that we developed for this particular scenario. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and select all these. Now, if I wanted to add or remove other items, again, I can use these features over here to include whatever items I want to include in this MRP run. Next, I want to say, what warehouses do I want to look at? Now, again, for our demo, I'm only going to be looking at the general warehouse. But if you had multiple warehouses and multiple locations, again, you could run this scenario based on whatever warehouses you want it to look at. So it's as flexible as you want it to be. And then the last thing is you determine where do you want the supply and demand to come from. So you get to choose what it's going to be looking at. So if I want to look at purchase requests and purchase quotes and orders and blanket purchase agreements and sales quotes and sales orders, so you get to pick and choose what demand you want the system to look at. So again, for our particular scenario here, we're going to be looking at purchase orders and blanket purchase orders, any sales orders that are out there, any blanket agreements, and we're going to be looking for production orders. So the first time we run this, we'll say that's the kinds of things that we're going to be looking for. So this tells me what my demand is, what am I going to sell, and this tells me my supply as to what we already have coming into production. So if I go ahead and run this scenario, what it's going to do now is say, okay, well, what do you need to do in order to meet that requirement of what's in the system right now? So if I look at this, for each item, it's telling me what my initial inventory is, what the supply is, what the demand is, and what the final inventory is. And again, that information is available for every item out here. So if I come out here and you can see this box is highlighted right here. If I click on this, this is what's creating the demand in the system, is that I have a sales order out here for 50 of these items. Okay, so this is creating demand. Okay, so that's why it's basically saying you need to do something, because we have demand for 50 of these and you don't have enough inventory to deliver those. I'm 34 short. I only have 16 in stock. So it's basically making a recommendation that you need to produce. Okay, but you can see out here it's saying to produce 35. Okay, well, why would it say 35 when I only need 34? Okay, and the answer is because if you remember when we looked at this item, when we set this item up, it's set up to have order multiples of 5. So when I came out here to the planning data, okay, it's not going to recommend 34 because it's going to be in multiples of 5. So it moved it to 35 automatically. So again, the system looks at all of that data in order to make these recommendations. And it's going to do that for every part that's going to have some sort of demand to either buy or produce. If I look at the recommendations tab, it's actually showing me what I need to do. I need to create these 2 production orders at these quantities to meet the current demand that's within the system. Okay, so that would be a very simple scenario of just meeting the demands of only looking at sales orders or production orders within the system. But I have additional ways of expanding that. So let's just say, because I'm a make to stock organization, I also want to make sure that I have my minimum inventory levels up to snuff as well. So I'm now going to add the minimum inventory levels into this MRP scenario, and what you'll see is a very different result. So now it's saying, hey, you need to do even more, because you need to produce more and you need to buy more in order to get the minimum inventory levels up to where you belong. So it's still wanting you to do the 50 here, but now it's there's additional requirements for purchase orders and for additional things to meet that minimum inventory level of all the items that we have defined here. So all we've done here really is just expanded the MRP wizard to not just look at sales orders, but to also look at the minimum inventory levels defined for all of these items. And now the recommendations that it's making are based off of that. So it's saying, hey, you still need these 2 production orders, but you can see the quantities are higher because I have minimum inventory levels on these 2 items. And then in order to produce these quantities, I need to buy all of these items in order to produce these items, because these all are components of those bills of material. So that would be another way of doing it, would be to add the minimum inventory levels into the MRP. And the last thing you can do is you can kind of combine methods together. So I can say, hey, maybe I set up my minimums as an absolutely minimal safety stock that I want, but I also want to put some sales forecasts into here. So what I can also do is add a sales forecast and say, okay, now for these 2 items, I'm projecting over this window of time that weekly I'm going to be selling these quantities. So I can forecast out here into the future of what I think I'm going to sell. All right, and I can even generate the forecast if I want automatically by using past sales history or things like that. So again, I don't have to manually enter this. I can actually calculate a forecast by using sales forecast, by using actual sales history and things like that as well. So once I create this sales forecast, now if I run the MRP, it's going to now consider all of that data as well. And you can see now it's making recommendations even way out into the future of things that we need to do to keep the demand into the future as well. So now the recommendations it's making, again, are a much bigger list of things that need to be done. And again, you want to make sure that you're hitting your due dates is the key element here. So that's the overview of how all that works. And what I'm going to do now is just step back and finish the process by just simplifying this a little bit. And I'm going to go back to my minimum inventory levels and not use a sales forecast. And I'm going to run this scenario. And now this is what it's basically telling me I need to do. Here's my recommendations. And so if I wanted to act on this now and do exactly what the system is telling me to do, what I would do is click the Save Recommendations button here. And then I can run what's called the Order Recommendation Report. And now this is showing me all the things that it's making recommendations for. So again, you can see it's, here's 2 production orders and then all of these purchase orders. When I have the system set up properly, it's also going to pull in all the base information about these items. It knows that this is the vendor that I buy these items from. Again, this is all set up within the item master of this particular item. So again, if I was to drill into that and show you on the purchasing data tab, it shows me my preferred vendors. I can have as many preferred vendors as I want, but basically it's going to default to your one preferred vendor, but you can switch it to the other ones if you want. So if I wanted a different vendor here, I could choose a different vendor. To make this simple, I chose one vendor. But if these products were purchased from different vendors, it would create a separate purchase order for every vendor, basically. So it brings in the pricing, it brings in the vendor, everything I need to do in order to execute this. So to keep it simple, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. If I click this column, you can see all those boxes were selected, and now I can go ahead and act on this. And when I click Update, it's going to create 2 production orders and 1 purchase order with all of these items on here. Okay? And that basically now would give me orders basically to go ahead and do what's necessary to get the system up to the recommendations of the data that's in the system. So 2 new production orders, 1 purchase order was created, and all the data that here goes away. So that's basically the end of the MRP run. And in the MRP, again, to make the stock situation, you'd run that MRP as often as you need to keep your inventory at the right levels. So in order to do the production, the first thing I need to do now is I need to execute these purchase orders that were just created, or the 1 purchase order. So you can see here's the purchase order I created for Acme and Associates. You can see down here it came from the MRP, and we just created this thing today on 12/7, and it brought in all the items, it brought in all the quantities and the pricing. And so literally I could just email this purchase order out to Acme Associates, and then they would have this purchase order to fulfill. Skipping ahead in time, let's say that we've now received the product at the shipping dock, and now we want to receive this inventory. What I would do is pull up this item. I would do a copy to goods receipt to receive these things into inventory. So the goods receipt now brings that stuff into inventory. Okay. One of the items is a lot controlled item, so I have to give it a lot number. So I give it the lot number to bring that in. All right, so now my inventory is received. The vendor is going to send me a purchase or an AP invoice. So here's the AP invoice for that. And just like I did on the AR side, I'm going to cheat here and pay the vendor right now. Again, normally you would do this through the banking module, but for demo purposes, I'm going to skip forward. So I add in that AP invoice, and just like we did on the AR side, if I now look at the relationship map, we created the purchase order from MRP, we received the product. We received an AP invoice from the vendor, and we paid them. So again, that would be what the full process looks like on the purchasing side. Okay, so I'm closing all these screens down. So now the last thing I need to do is I need to go and execute those production orders. So what happened then from the MRP wizard is we created 2 production orders. So here's the first one for the subassembly that we created. Again, came from MRP. And now it said again, it was for a quantity of 56. So there's the subassembly production order, and then here's the end product production order. But in order for me to finish this production order, I first have to have the subassemblies completed, because the subassemblies are a component of the end product. So the first thing I would do would be to execute this particular production order, and I'm going to do this the same way that I did for the make to order scenario. I release the production order. I print the traveler to the shop floor. When we're done with production, I would come in here, do my report completion, tell it how many I produced. So here's the 56 that we produced, add that into the system. And now if I again looking over here at the summary tab, it shows that everything happened appropriately. All the inventory, all the components came out of inventory. The end product went into inventory at 56. All the financial transactions are happening. There was no variances. I can close this production order, and now the subassembly is now in stock. I can then go over to the production order for the end product, and I basically follow the same process. I release it, print the shop order to the floor. When we're done, we report completion. I'm going to have the same thing going on here as I did before. I'm going to produce 85 of these. Again, I have to produce a serial number. So I'm going to go 601. And oh goodness, I'm not going to be able to do that because I'm going to have to produce 85 serial numbers. So I'm not going to go through that process. But in essence, this is exactly the same process as we did before. I would produce the end product and then issue the materials. It's the same process over and over again in order to complete this particular production order. So in the end, I have finished my make to stock order. I've got 85 of those items in inventory, and now they would be available to sell through a sales order. So that completes the make to stock scenario. We've already showed the make to order. And so essentially, that is a wrap up of what we do in the production module. Again, there's additional features that come into here that we really didn't talk about. Like, for example, on the resources side, if you wanted to get into using the resources, this basically shows you all the different resources that are defined in the system, and it shows you their capacity. So you can see down here that we consumed some of this into that production order that we just did. So these items are showing what's consumed. It shows you what's on order, and it's going to show you what available capacity you have on each of these different assemblies. So if you were over capacity, it basically would show you that. Again, it's not necessarily a capacity planner from the standpoint of it's not going to reschedule based on being over capacity. But looking at this particular item here, you'd easily be able to see where my available resources are and where you're over capacity. And so if you're going to get into capacity planning, that would be done through the resource capacity function. Okay. All right, so that's going to wrap up the actual SAP demo part of it. So if I go back to my PowerPoint for just a quick wrap up. So we have some add-ons as well. So what I showed you today was 100% out of the box SAP Business One. Again, we have customers who need more functionality than that. And so if that's the case, maybe you want to have shop floor terminals. So instead of having paper work orders put to the floor and then reporting back through a supervisor or whatever, you can have shop floor terminals where you can manage the production orders, report completion, issue goods, from a terminal that's sitting on the shop floor. Again, that would be separate from it. It wouldn't be an SAP license. It would be an add-on product that interfaces to SAP to be able to do those types of things. So again, we have products that allow you to have the shop floor terminals. Or you can have an inspections or quality module. So again, integrated with the SAP production, if you wanted to then make sure that there was inspections that were being done or quality checks, we have add-ons that help with that. We have add-ons that enhance the MRP and give you a more advanced production scheduling. So again, there's ways to enhance that as well. A WMS or warehouse management system and barcode scanning. So if you, instead of doing those transactions as you saw them today, we can do them through scanning capability with handheld scanners to do your material receipts or transfers, issues and completions, while scanning product, again, with barcodes and things like that. And then if you really get into, a more advanced, we have add-ons that literally completely replace what we showed you today to do more, handle more complex engineering or manufacturing scenarios. Maybe you're a job shop and you need detailed job costing for one-off products or projects. If you're into process manufacturing where you have recipes and formula management and things like that, we have add-ons that can also expand to handle those things as well. So what you saw today is not where it stops. There's ways for us to enhance that in many different ways, and these are just a few examples. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the presentation portion of this. And again, we're going to open it up for any Q&A. We did have a couple of questions that came in during the webinar. And Jega, if you can check the chat for anything else that may have came in, please let me know. But the first question that came in was,
Sure.
is this a cloud solution? And the answer is really more of a generic SAP Business One question. SAP Business One can be deployed in the cloud, or it can be deployed on premise, so it's your choice. It can be done either way. In the last several years, cloud has been predominantly the way that we go. Well over 90% of our customers are putting this in the cloud, but you can still put it in on-premise if you'd like. The second question, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jiga.
No, I see one other question. So whether this particular add-ons, what we are talking about, will that work in cloud version?
Absolutely, yeah. So whatever add-ons, again, everything that works with Business One, if it's in the cloud or on premise, it will still work in either scenario. So really where you deploy is just an option. It's not a requirement to be in the cloud or on premise. We have the same functionality either way. All right.
Yeah.
And then we had another question that came in. It was a kind of a two-part question. So the question is there a limit to the number of items that you can put on a bill of material? And is there a limit to the number of levels of sub-assemblies you can define? The answer to both of those is no. You can have, your bill of material can include as many items as you need. And in your sub-assemblies, you can go as many levels deep as you want. So, each sub-assembly, as you saw in the demo, is considered, would be its own production order. But you can go as many levels deep as you need to in the structure of a product. All right. Are there any other questions in the chat?
Let me quickly check one last time. Yeah, I see one other question, Jerry. Okay. So all these minimum order and maximum order quantity, can we have it like a? So that's another question that came through.
Yeah. So again, it truly just comes down to how you set the items up. So so if you want, the minimums and requireds, all those, again, have different definitions, of course, and how the system reacts to those. But typically during the implementation, we would go through that with you and determine how you want the demand within your system to be run, and then we help you set up the minimums and the maximums and the required inventory levels. All that stuff again factors into the MRP. In how the system's going to react to that. So it's all part of the setup, and you set those up on your items, in the best way to run the business the way that you want it.
I think that's the end. No other questions, Jerry, so far. Okay.
Well, very good. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. And this will be available. We recorded this today, and it will be available through our website shortly. And thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining the call today. And we'll see you in the next webinar. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.